Good morning, everyone, and Shabbat Shalom. This week's Torah portion is Noach, the story of the flood. But at the very end of the Torah portion is a second episode, the story of the Dor HaFlaga, the generation of people that led a rebellion against God. They actually declared war against God. And what does God do? He says to his heavenly host, Ner Dana, let's go down and see what they're planning, what they're doing. And what does God do? He confuses their languages, so they do not speak the same mutual language. And once they cannot communicate with one another, a civil war breaks out amongst them, and they self-destruct. And the question is, why was this God's response to their rebellion against God? And perhaps the answer is that God was saying that when we rebel against God, we rebel against one another. Because what is it that keeps us together as humanity? What is the uniting force that makes us all one? The fact that we're created by one God, and each and every one of us is created in His image, and therefore we're all one and the same. We each possess the same divinely soul. And once we lose that connection to God, once we rebel against God, or God forbid declare war against God, what we're actually doing is declaring war against each other, because we cannot sustain our humanity and our unity without that connection to God, which comes through our connected souls with one another. Returning now from Israel, having just landed back in Florida after 3 days. The good news is, everyone knows the good news worldwide. The war is over. That's what Israel is celebrating. The end of the war, the return of the hostages. But you know what's equally exciting? That the war between one another has ended. Because once we've ended the war with each other, then the war against our enemies ended as well. And once we've made peace with each other, once again we're making peace with God as a Jewish nation. That was what was so inspiring and beautiful about this trip. To see the unconditional love, the unity, and the love of every Jew now, and especially the 20 hostages who just came home. Their new connection, their love for God, their appreciation, their gratitude, every one of them saying, God watched over me, that's why I'm back here today. And so the war is over with Hamas. God willing, it will be completely over soon. The war is over with many of our other enemies that we've destroyed. But it's because internally our war is over. And of course, we are at peace with God, and we now have re-established our love for one another and our connection and our love for Hashem, for God. And that's the most exciting part of this trip to Israel, to see the way we're one Jewish nation. And that's why I'm so excited about these trips, because when we come as an Orthodox synagogue, as religious Jews, and we go to every single Israeli, religious, not religious, secular, it doesn't matter, and we say we're one nation, that is a show of unconditional love. And they deserve our love because they have been showing that love to us all along. And we remember what we were like before October 7th, and how great it is to feel the brotherly love now. Our brothers and sisters in Israel recognize now more than ever that nothing in the world should ever separate one Jew from another Jew. One of the beautiful things we did just yesterday was we went to visit the home of a fallen Shin Bet officer. As a matter of fact, his work was so high class, secret, that his photo has never been published since he fell on October 7th. His name is Yossi Tahor. We went to visit his wife Liat and his 4 children because they all have birthdays this month and next month. And we bought birthday presents for every one of the children. And then we played soccer with the family, because the 7-year-old Ron loves soccer, and we bought him a soccer ball, and we bought them birthday cakes. And we spoke to Liat, and she told us the story of her husband, who on October 7th heard that one of his comrades was injured, and he said, no one is going to die on my watch. And he immediately left and headed down to the kibbutzim. And tragically, just an hour and a half later, he was shot by a Hamas terrorist. He was only 40 years old. And he leaves 4 orphans and a widow. And she talked about how many lives he saved on that morning, because he managed to take control by killing terrorists and taking control of their white Jeep, and got a hold of their radio. And because he was in the Shin Bet, he spoke fluent Arabic, and he was able to share all the messages of all their plans that he overheard the Hamas terrorists speaking amongst themselves. But she said, just yesterday, the teacher of my son, a 7-year-old son's class, called me. She said, I have to tell you something. I gave the kids an assignment. Each one of them should write something they're grateful for. And you know what your son Ron wrote about? When he was asked, what are you grateful for? He said, I'm grateful that my Father in heaven was such a great hero and saved so many lives on October 7th and throughout his entire career in the Shin Bet. Imagine a child growing up 7 years old. He was only 5 when his father was killed. But he walks around with pride knowing that his father sacrificed his life for others. This is the inspiration that we get in Israel and what we have to learn from them, that every Jew has to be willing to be there for one another, to sacrifice for one another, because that is our strength when there is only peace and love amongst all of us. Have a Shabbat Shalom.